عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين والصلاة والسلام على رسول الكريم. ربنا ظلمنا أنفسنا وإن لم تغفر لنا وترحمنا لنكونن من الخاسرين. اللهم نور قلوبنا بمعرفتك واشرح صدورنا من نور كتابك وسنة نبيك واحفظنا أنت لين وخطئ في بيان مرادك. Okay, so we continue with the discussion with regards to those defects which may be found in an animal. It will either qualify or disqualify the animal from Qurbani. Once again, we remind that these are specific to Qurbani animals that we slaughter throughout the year, other than this time, for consumption purposes. These won't necessarily apply. Why? Because in those animals, the purpose is consumption only, our daily meat or our weekly meat. Whereas for Qurbani, this is a Qurba, where it's an offering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in order to gain closeness, an act of ibadah. Obviously, just like our other acts of ibadah, we ensure that our clothing is clean, or wudu is made properly, and so forth. In the same way here, it is only appropriate that we see that the animal is befitting Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, befitting the ibadah of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So yesterday we did that a person can slaughter castrated animal that is hornless, and an animal which is insane, mad. Okay. Now we say what jarba. إن كان سمينة جاز لأن الجرب في الجلد لا نقصان ولا نقصان في اللحم. So I think jarba is a disease which affects the skin of an animal. It's called mange, M-A-N-G-E. Like a mangy dog, for example. So mange. So this is a type of skin that affects the skin of the animal. In kana saminatan, if the jarba is plump, meaning it hasn't affected the mange, hasn't affected the quality of the meat, then it will be permissible jaza. Why? لأن الجرب في الجلد ولا نقصان في اللحم. Why? Because the jarb is confined to the skin and is not affected the meat. وإن كان مهزولة لا تجوز. And if it has become very thin as a result, very emaciated as a result of the mange, لا يجوز, then it will not be permissible لأن الجرب في اللحم, because now we can say that this disease has penetrated into the skin, has affected the skin, affected the meat as well. فانتقص, so it has become defective. وأما الهتمة وهي التي لا أسنان فيها فنبي يوسف رحمة الله أنه يعتبر في الأسنان الكثرة والكلة، وأنه إن بقي ما يمكن الائتلاف بأجزائه لحصول المكسول. And hatma, which is an animal that has no teeth. Then Imam Yusuf rahmatullah has two views. As from him, one view is that he considers majority or minority, meaning whether the major portion of its teeth is still intact or not. And if the major portion of the teeth are intact, then it's fine. Otherwise, not. And in another narration, or another opinion which has been reported from him, if that much of teeth has remained, which makes it possible for this animal to eat its fodder, to eat its food, then it will suffice. Why? Because the purpose is obtained. And then that it is still continuing to eat and feed itself, so therefore its health and so forth will not become affected by the loss of its teeth or some of its teeth. وَسَكَّى وَيْلَةٍ لَا أَذْنَ لَهَا. And sakka, an animal which does not have any ears, meaning khilkatan, naturally. It wasn't cut off or anything, it just born like that, no ears and earless. لا تجوز إن كان هذا لأن مقطوع أكثر الأذن لأن مقطوع أكثر الأذن إذا كان لا يجوز فعديم الأذن أولى. So if this is the case, in Canada, if this is the case, it will be not permissible. Why? Because that animal whose ear is cut off, or the majority of the ear is cut off, this is not permissible. So if the ear is non-existent, then by tariqi awla, even more so, it should not be permissible. Understood?
جي.
Nice thing.
طيب.
وهذا الذي ذكرنا all of these defects which we mentioned إذا كانت هذه العيوب قائمة وقت الشراء. This is if any of these defects are found at the time of purchase. And so you went to purchase the animal and you saw that defect, then you can't purchase that animal. So all of these defects is if these defects were existent at the time of purchase or at the time when you went to go inspect the animal to purchase, right? ولو اشتراها سليمة. However, if you purchase the animal intact, healthy, no, free of any defects, free of any faults, ثم تعيرت بعيب مانع, and then it became defective with any of these uh, defects which makes the udhiyah impermissible, mani'in, which prevents permissibility of the udhiyah. Right? So you purchase the animal, it was fine. Thereafter, one of the defects came in, right? So whatever means. Was fighting with that animal, became blinded, whatever, right? Another thing, what will be the masla then? In kana ghaniyan alayhi ghayruhu. If the person is rich, meaning he has by the means, if he's stable, monetary, he has monetary stability, then it is compulsory upon him to purchase another animal. وَإِنْ كَانَ فَقِيرًا تُجْزِئُ هَذِهِ. And if it was a poor person, then this animal is sufficient. لأن الوجوب على الغني بالشرع ابتداء لا بالشراء. Why? Because for the rich person, the wujub, the compulsoryness of the animal, or uh, the wujub of this animal, of this hukam, it is by the sharia, bishari, and it was installed by the sharia. It was instituted by the sharia. The sharia made it compulsory upon the rich person. Ibtidan, right from the beginning. Not the purchasing of the animal. It was not the purchasing of the animal that made the animal compulsory. So there is no ta'yin. And that specific animal that you bought doesn't become specified. The Sharia just told you sacrifice such an animal. Sacrifice an animal that has these qualities and is free of these faults. Any such animal will suffice. Any such animal will fulfill the duty. But now that you have an animal which has become defective, that animal automatically is discounted. So because now it has fallen outside of the instruction of the Sharia. Okay? It wasn't that by you purchasing the animal, that specific animal now became specified that this is my Qurbani animal. Unlike Falamata AMB, so therefore that animal does not become specified by you purchasing the animal. At the time it qualified, yes, but then it became disqualified because of the fault which crept in. So therefore now you have to go and look for another animal that fits the criterion of the Sharia. However, while al-fakir bi shira'i, the upon the poor person, the wujub came about because of his purchase. It wasn't compulsory upon him. Now that he bought the animal, now it became compulsory upon him, as we discussed yesterday, according to the Ahnaf. So it is the purchasing of the animal, in his case, that made the animal wajib. So this animal becomes specified. That this is the animal that you specifically purchased for this purpose and made it compulsory upon him. And being near to Udhiyah, when he did so with the intention of slaughtering, فَتَعَيَّنَ, so therefore it becomes specific. So therefore, when that animal has now incurred some kind of fault, it will not fall away the wujub. وَلَا يَجِبُ عَلَيْهِ ضَمَانُ نُقْصَانِهِ, and the penalty that is incurred because of this defect will not become compulsory upon him. Otherwise, we won't try to get what you call a pricing from the experts that because of this defect, how much less will this animal now cost if I was to sell it, if I was to resell it, and then tell him, okay, pay the difference. We won't do that because it was not his fault. Okay. Kama fi nisab zakat, as happens in the nisab of zakat. Person had 10,000, for example, he had to pay zakat even the day before the year ended. it came down to 8,000 or 6,000. So he only pays zakat on 6,000, not on the 10,000 that he had the day before. You follow? وعن هذا الأصل قالوا, so based upon this principle, they say, the ulama, إذا ماتت المشترات لتضحية على الموسي مكانها أخرى ولا شيء على الفقير, that if the purchased animal that was purchased for the intention of slaughtering, if it was to die before Eid al-Adha came along, then upon the financially stable person, the rich person, you will have to replace it with another. And there will be nothing, no penalty, nothing upon the poor person. ولو ضلت أو سرقت فاشترى أخرى ثم ظهرت الأولى في أيام النحر على الموسر ذبح إحداهما وعلى الفقير ذبحهما. That if the animal was to become lost or ضلت أو سرقت, it was stolen, and he went and purchased another animal, then the first animal appeared again. The stolen animal was brought back, and the person made tawbah, brought it back quietly. Or the lost animal was found, and somebody said, hey, there's a sheep running around in the neighborhood, whatever his contact, so and so. Is it? So then it appeared during the days. The first animal appeared during the days of Nahar. Then in this case, the masla is upon the rich person. He'll have to slaughter either one of the two. He has a choice now because it's unspecified. He may either slaughter the first one or the second one. However, the poor person will have to slaughter both. Because again, his wuju came upon by purchasing. So when he purchased the second animal, he didn't have to, but by him doing so, now the wuju falls on both of them. You follow? So when the first one reappeared, he'll have to slaughter that one also because that is also wajib upon him. Understood?
Yes.
Continuing, ولو أضطجع فاضطربت فانكسر رجلها. If another scenario, right? This is where the animal, some aib occurred upon the animal at the time of slaughtering. So we did an aib before purchasing, an aib which occurred, a fault which occurred after purchasing, and now a fault which occurred at the time of slaughtering. Right? What's the masla that? So if you lay down the animal to slaughter, felt tarab, it started what you call becoming restless, started shaking, started moving around, kicking and so forth. فانكسر رجله, and because of the kicking and going wild, broke its leg. فذبح, and the person still went there and slaughtered it. أجزاء استحسان عندنا خلافا للزفر والشافعي رحمه الله تعالى. And this will suffice. And even though it is a crippled animal now, it should not have qualified. But according to us, istihsan, it will qualify, it will be sufficient. Contrary to Imam Zufar of the Ahnaf and Imam Shafi رحمة الله عليهم أجمعين. لأن حالة الذبح مقدماتها ملحقة بالذبح. Why? Because at the time of slaughtering, whatever occurs prior to it is joined to it. Okay? Whatever occurs prior to the slaughtering, laying it down, getting it, preparing the animal, all of those things, this is connected to the slaughter itself. So because it occurred at the time of you preparing the animal to slaughter, so therefore we will say that you have slaughtered a defective animal. Okay, it wasn't slaughtered at that time as yet. So by you then slaughtering it afterwards, you slaughtered a defective animal. So therefore it's connected to pre-slaughter. Understood?
Yes.
فكأنه حصل as if the fault, as if the defect occurred at that time prior to slaughter, اعتبارا or حكما, both قياسا and حكما, and قياسا and شرعا otherwise. Okay? Or you can say حقيقة and حكما. اعتبار meaning a حقيقة in reality also, that's what happened, and حكما شرعا also, that's what happened. وكذا لو تعيب في هذه الحالة فانفلتت ثم أخذت من فورها كذا بعد فورها عند محمد رحمة الله عليه. And like this, if it was to become, it was to incur a defect in this condition, understand? And فلتت, and it ran away. ثم أخذت, and it was captured again. من فورها, so it was captured almost immediately من فورها. وكذا بعد فوري, and similarly if it was captured after it ran away, and after sometime later بعد فوري, and sometime later it was captured. So either you call it immediately فوري, or you quote it a short while after it, right? In both cases, the same masla will apply. In the Muhammad, according to Imam Muhammad rahmatullahi, khilafan li Abu Yusuf, contrary to Imam Yusuf rahmatullahi, فإنه حصل بمقدمات الذبح, because in this instance, Imam Yusuf rahmatullahi agrees with Imam Shafi and Imam Zufar rahmatullahi that this aib, this fault, this defect occurred in those things which led up to its slaughter, so therefore it will be disqualified. Okay, so that.
Okay.
قال what now? Which animals can you slaughter? قال والأضحية من الإبل والبقر والغنم. That the animals which are eligible for slaughtering are from camels. It doesn't matter what type of camel, a cow or anything, any other species, bulls, buffaloes, so forth. والغنم and غنم livestock. It will be your sheep and your goats and lambs. Okay. Okay. لأن عرف شرعا. Why? Because this is an act ibadat which we come to know of, which we are taught by the Sharia. And this is what the Sharia has restricted to these animals. There's no dalil for chicken or anything else like that. Okay? ولم تنقل الأضحية بغيرها. And no tadhiyah, no qurbani has been narrated from the Sharia with any other animal besides these categories. من النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم, from the Nabi صلى الله عليه وسلم, ولا من الصحابة, neither from the Sahaba, رضوان الله عليهم أجمعين. قال, now how old must animal be? وقال ويجزئ من ذلك كله أو كلها الثني فصاعدا إلا الضعن فإن الجذع منه يجزئ. That any from all of these categories, an animal which is thani will suffice. And thani or older, except for the dha'n, except for the a lamb, because they are jaza, 6-month-old will suffice. Right. What is thani? Thani for a goat or a sheep is an animal which completed its first year going into its second year. For a cow, it's completed second year going into third year, and for a camel, 5 years minimum. Okay, that's thani. You explain that it's coming in front also, inshallah. And a jaza is a lamb. It's about 6 months, but it looks like a 1-year-old. And then it's nice and plump like a 1-year-old. It'll also be fine. لقول عليه الصلاة والسلام ضحوا بالثنايا إلا أن يعثر على أحدكم فليذبح الجزع. That you should cut animal which is which is thanaya, which is in that age, then which is in the thanya, which is just explained now. Either second year, completed his first year, going into second year for goats and sheep, or completed his second year, going to the third year for cows and bulls, and 5 years for a camel, right? Unless it is difficult upon any one of you, then he may slaughter a jada, min al-dha'ni, from the lamb. وقال عليه الصلاة والسلام نعمة الأضحية الجزع, that what a good qurbani is a jada, min al-dha'n, from the lambs. قالوا وهذا إذا كانت عظيمة. Ulama say this is if the jada, the lamb, is nice and big, عظيمة, nice and big, nice and plump, بحيث لو خلط بالثنايا يشتبه على الناظر من بعيد. That if it was mixed with other animals of that is 1 year old, and it's completed 1 year, the person looking at it will not realize, will be confused as to whether this animal is also the same age or not. Okay, so it looks like a 1-year-old. Okay.
Yeah.
والجزع من الضأن ما تمت له 16. What is الجزع من الضأن? A lamb is that animal, that lamb, which has completed 6 months. في مذهب الفقهاء, according to the فقهاء. وذكر الزعفراني رحمه الله أنه ابن 7 أشهر. Imam Za'farani says it is a lamb that is 7 months old. والثاني منها ومن المعز, and a thani from both the sheep, lambs, and the ma'az, goats, is a 1 year. So completed this 1 year, going into the second year. ومن البقر, and the thaniya of the cow, ibn sanatain, completed 2 years, going into the third year. ومن الإبل ibn 5 سنين, and the camel, a thani, will be 5 years old. Okay, so that's the minimum age. Understood?
Okay.
ويدخل في البقر الجاموس, and buffaloes are included into the category of cows because they come from the same family. لأنه من جنسي, and because of the same category, same family. والمولود بين الأهلي والوحشي يتبع الأم. And any animal that is born from an ahli, a domesticated animal, and a wild animal, then so a wild animal and a domesticated animal, they came together, and from the like for example, a buffalo and a cow, see?
Hmm.
A wild buffalo and a cow, see? And a child was born. So is it a cow or buffalo? So they say it will follow the mother, whatever the mother was. You count the child to be that animal. Okay? لأنها
Okay.
هي الأصل. Why? Because the mother is the أصل. The mother is the origin. في التبعية, when it comes to تبعية. So when it comes to what is born of the mother. When it comes to what is produced by the mother. حتى إذا نزع الذئب على الشاة يضحي بالولد. Therefore, to this extent, that if this was possible, not possible, but if it was possible, that what do you call this, a
Wolf.
wolf was to mate with a sheep, with a goat, or uh, a sheep or a goat, and the child was born, يضحي بالولد, it will be permissible to slaughter that child, so, because we'll count it as a goat or a sheep. Understood? Obviously, that's not
Okay.
possible, right? And it's just uh, theoretically speaking. And just to explain the masala of, we look at the mother when it comes to this kind of thing. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. We stop the shall I try and finish this tomorrow? Or chapter if possible. Mm, okay, بسم الله. وإذا اشترى 7 بقرات ليضحي بها فمات أحدهما قبل النحر وقالت الورثة ذبحوها وإذبحوها عنه وعنكم أجزاؤهم. If a person bought 7 cows in order to slaughter all of them, and one of them died before, sorry, إذا اشترى 7 بقرة, if 7 people purchase the 1 cow, right, because 7 shears, to slaughter, and then one of the people who purchased, one of the partners, he died before the day of slaughter. And the heirs of that deceased person say that slaughter the animal on his behalf and on your behalf. Let's go ahead. أجزاؤهم, it will suffice. وإن كان شريك الستة نصرانية أو رجلا يريد اللحم لا يجزي عن واحدهما. However, if one of the partners, 6 partners, is a Christian or a person who doesn't intend to slaughter for Qurbani but for the meat only, not as ibadah, then this will disqualify all of them. It will not suffice on behalf. We discussed this masala before, and he said he's going to come back to explain it. So this is what he's explaining now. Okay. ووجهه, the reason for this is أن البقرة تجوز عن 7, that it is permissible to slaughter a cow and such animals on behalf of 7 people. لكن من شرطه أن يكون قصد الكل القربة. However, it is a precondition that the intention of each one of those 7 must be an act of ibadah. وإن اختلفت, even if it is a different act of ibadah, but it must be an act of ibadah. And they all, even if one of them got a different intention, but his act of ibadah counts as act of ibadah, it will be fine. For example, وإن اختلفت جهاتها, even though it's a type of ibadah is different. For example, كالأضحية والقيران والمتعة. Since some of them are shooting for udhiyah, some of them are in purpose of kiran hajj, والمتعة tamattu hajj. Understand? Dami shukr and so forth. Then this will also, because this also counts as act of ibadah, all of it will be correct. It doesn't matter if the type of ibadah is different or the intention of the ibadah is different, but it must be an act of ibadah. In Dana, according to us, لاتحاد المقصود. Why? Because the purpose is one. That is, that this animal has been purchased for a sacrifice for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala as an act of ibadah. وهو القربة. Okay. وقد وجد وهذا الشرط في الوجه الأول. And this shart is found in the first masala. What is the first masala in the matan? Where the person died and all his heirs were all Muslim, said you can sort it, go ahead with it on his behalf. And he wanted it to be sorted for Qurbani, so go ahead. So in the first masala that is found, لأن تضحية عن الغير عرفت قربة, because to slaughter on behalf of somebody else, this has been recognized as an act of ibadah. ألا ترى أن النبي صلى الله عليه وسلم يضحي عن أمتي على ما روينا من قبل. Don't you see that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam slaughtered on behalf of his ummah? There's a masla that we did before yesterday, that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam slaughtered 2 sheep that were black and white in color and they were castrated, one from himself and one on behalf of the ummah. Okay. ولم يوجد في so how is he making istidlal from that hadith? He's making istidlal that Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam making behalf of his ummah, whereas the ummah didn't even exist besides the Sahaba. Only the first generation were there. The rest of us were not there. We weren't even existing at that time. So if it is permissible to make Qurbani on behalf of someone that doesn't even exist, then to make behalf of Qurbani of a person who was exist but died should be permissible as well. That's how he's making istidlal from that hadith. You follow?
Yeah.
ولم يوجد في الوجه الثاني. If this condition is not found in the second masala, where the person is a Nasrani, or the person has the intention for the meat only, not for ibadah. لأن النصراني ليس من أهلها, because the Christian is not from the Ahl Islam, not from the Ahl Qurba. He can't make intention of ibadah. He's not a Muslim. وكذا قصد اللحم, and similarly, the shart is not found in the third masala, where the person intended to have to slaughter for the meat only, not for ibadah. وكذا قصد اللحم ينافيها, and similarly, the intent of solely eating the meat only for consumption purposes is also contrary to qurba, goes contrary to the shart. وإذا يقع البعض والإراقة لا تجزئ في حق القربى لم يقع الكل. That if the qurba and the iraka is not found in some of them, understand, then it will not be applicable to all of them as well. It will affect the other partners as well. فامتنع الجواز, therefore it becomes impermissible. Therefore permissibility is lost. Follow?
Okay.
وهذا الذي, and this masla which Imam Qudri Rahmallah mentioned, the first masla which he mentioned in the matan on slaughtering on behalf of the deceased person, this is istihsan. والقياس ألا يجوز, whereas the amount of qiyas is it should not be permissible. وهو رواية عن أبي يوسف رحمة الله, and this is in fact narrated from Imam Abu Yusuf رحمة الله, that is not permissible. Why not permissible? لأنه تبرع بالإتلاف فلا يجوز عن غيره. Why? Because it's an act of tabarru. There's an act of sadaqah, of goodwill, of isali thawab, and it is incurring by the loss of wealth. See? This act of ibadah, this act of tabarru, of ihsan, of goodwill towards the deceased person, is taking place by means of destruction of wealth, destroying wealth. See? فَلَا يَجُوزُ عَنْ غَيْرِهِ. So therefore, normally, such type of acts of ibadah is not permissible on behalf of somebody else. كَالْإِعْتَاقِ عَنِ الْمَيِّتِ. Like how, for example, if you were to free somebody on behalf of a mayyit, this won't be permissible. So, لكن نقول, however, we say, although that is qiyas, but there's another qiyas here that is even more slightly. There's the other adilla here that we are giving preference to over this qiyas. That's what istihsan is. However, we say al-qurbatu qad taqa anhu, that sometimes acts of worship can take place on behalf of the mayyit. Kat tasadduq, like when you give sadaqah with the intention of isali thawab on behalf of the mayyit. بخلاف الإعتاق, contrary to إعتاق, freeing somebody. Why? Because we are saying that freeing somebody on behalf of the mate is not permissible, not because it's loss of wealth, but لأن فيه إلزام الولاء على الميت. But because you are enforcing wala upon the mate. Wala is where the freed slave now becomes part of the family of the mate. He is responsible for that person, like how he would be responsible for any member of his family. They can inherit from each other and so on and so forth. And we did the rules of wala last year. So because you are enforcing wala, this authority of the freed slave onto the family or onto the mayyit, that is why you can't make ilzam of something upon somebody else that died. You can't enforce something upon a dead person. You follow? That is why it's not permissible. ولو ذبحوه عن صغير في الورثة أو ولد جاز. And if they were to slaughter the animal on behalf of a minor amongst the heirs, or a walad, or free or walad, this will be permissible. لما بينا, um, for the reason we just mentioned. لأنه قربة, that it is an act of ibadah, and acts of ibadah on behalf of these things can take place. ولو مات واحد منهم فذبحها الباقون بغير إذن الورثة لا يجزئهم. And if one of them was to die, and the other partners, the other six, they slaughtered the animal, they went ahead with the qurban without taking permission from the heirs, and this will not suffice. لأنه لم يقع بعضها قربة, because again, one of their shares did not take place as qurba. Okay? Because he died. And so you can't take the niyyah of a dead person. Had you taken the permission of the heirs, and then that might have worked, as we explained already. But the dead person is ibadat is finished now. His act of ibadat is done. Okay, you can't make an intention from the grave. Okay?
Yeah.
وفيما تقدم وجد الإذن من الورثة فكان قربة. Whereas in the first masala, their permission was found from the heirs. So therefore, this can act as an act of qurba, where the heirs stand in place of the deceased person. Understood that?
Sure.
Any questions? Anything you didn't understand?
No, I'm understood.
Okay, inshallah, we'll try and complete it tomorrow, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala, so that we don't stop in the middle of the kitab, inshallah, bi'idhnillahi ta'ala. Okay, inshallah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
سبحان الله وبحمده سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك نشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك.